let's be honest, you can feel it, can't you? This growing sense that the financial system is kinda stretched to its breaking point. You see it in the soaring inequality, the mountains of debt, the crazy cost of just about everything. So the big question is, are we watching capitalism crumble? Or is this just the start of a whole new chapter? Let's dig in and figure out what's really going on.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll tackle the crisis itself. Then we'll look at something called the Great Squeeze on your finances. We'll cover how we got here and why this time really might be different. Then we'll explore what could come next, and most importantly, how you can navigate this new reality.
All right, let's start with the big picture. Capitalism's crisis. I mean, for centuries, this system has been the engine of global growth. But right now, that engine is sputtering, and the whole thing is under some truly unprecedented pressure. So, does the economy just feel kind of broken to you? If you've had that nagging feeling that your savings are shrinking or that the old rules just don't apply anymore, you are definitely not alone. It's a feeling shared by millions who are seeing the same cracks appear in our financial world. A huge part of that feeling comes down to what we can call the Great Squeeze. It's this idea that regular people are getting squeezed financially from two different directions at the exact same time. Let's break down how this works. So the first side of this squeeze is a powerful, kind of sneaky concept called financial repression. Here's the deal. Governments and central banks are deliberately keeping interest rates lower than the rate of inflation. What does that mean for you? Well, it means the cash in your savings account is actively losing its buying power day after day. It's basically an invisible tax that helps the government slowly, quietly pay down its own massive debts. And while the government is squeezing savers from one side, we're all getting squeezed from the other. Just look at this number, $18 trillion. That's the total household debt in the US alone. It's a completely staggering, mind-boggling figure. And this isn't debt for fancy vacations or new gadgets. We're talking about credit card debt that has soared past $1 trillion, with millions of people swiping their cards just to cover the absolute basics. Groceries, gas, medical bills. This is a huge shift. Debt is no longer a tool to get ahead. For so many, it's now a tool for pure survival. Now, before we declare it's the end of the world, it's super important to remember that capitalism has been in tight spots before. In fact, it has a really long history of facing down crises and then evolving to survive them. Time after time, you see this pattern. From the ashes of feudalism all the way up to the 2008 financial crisis, the system has stared into the abyss. And every single time, whether it was Teddy Roosevelt breaking up the monopolies or FDR rolling out the New Deal, it found a way to adapt and keep going. So you might be thinking, okay, if it's always adapted, why is everyone so worried now? Well, the argument is that today's problems are just fundamentally different. We're not just talking about another dip in the business cycle. We're talking about deep, structural threats to the very foundation of the system. This argument really rests on four huge, interconnected threats hitting all at once. First, you've got stagnant growth. Then, extreme inequality like we haven't seen in a century. Add to that massive tech disruption from AI and automation. And finally, the rise of this weird new thing some are calling techno-feudalism. So what on earth is techno-feudalism? Think about it like this. The old robber barons, the Rockefellers and Carnegies, they made their fortunes from production, from building things. Today's digital giants, they make money by controlling the platform itself, the digital land, and then they charge a rent just for you to use it. That 30% cut from the App Store, that's not profit from innovation. That's profit from pure control. And that idea of control ties directly into extreme inequality. For decades, wages for most people have barely budged, while financial tricks have sent asset prices to the moon for the wealthy. And the result is a gap so wide that, as you can see here, the average American CEO now makes about 200 times more than their average worker. When a system gets that lopsided, it starts to break the core promise that hard work pays off. So if the current model is under this much structural strain, it leads to the most important question of all: what comes next? let's take a look at some of the alternatives being floated out there. There's a whole spectrum of possibilities, really. On one end, you have ideas to just reform the system we have, like breaking up big tech. Then you get into more radical ideas like universal basic income, or UBI. You've got the rise of decentralized crypto economies. And of course, other models like democratic socialism are in the mix too. Let's just grab UBI for a second. It's a fascinating idea, right? Especially with AI possibly taking a lot of jobs. But it gets complicated fast. How do you pay for it without causing runaway inflation? And here's the real kicker. Is there a risk that all that money just goes from the government, through your hands, and straight into the pockets of the same giant corporations, basically trapping you in a new way? Okay, these are huge global questions. They can feel a little abstract. So let's bring it all back home and talk about what this new reality could actually mean for you and your money. In an environment like this, the single biggest risk is just plain old uncertainty. Markets absolutely hate it. But here's the key thing to remember. Volatility isn't just a negative. For people who are paying attention and are prepared, every major economic shift creates clear winners and clear losers. So where might those winners and losers be? Well, the analysis points to some vulnerable spots. Think traditional banks or businesses that rely heavily on consumer spending. But on the flip side, it also highlights potential opportunities in things like hard assets, sectors that benefit from government spending, and decentralized crypto that operates outside the old system. Thinking strategically in this kind of world really demands a new playbook. Two principles become critical. First, geographical diversification. You don't want all your eggs in one country's basket. And second, active portfolio management. You need the flexibility to react to changes, not just passively hold on and hope for the best. Ultimately, if you take just one thing away from all of this, let it be this quote. Because of all the forces we've talked about, the coming years are very, very unlikely to be a simple repeat of the past. A really big, fundamental change is happening. And during times of major change and, let's face it, turbulence, being informed isn't just a nice to have, it is absolutely essential. In this new economic landscape, knowledge is without a doubt your most valuable asset. So, we'll leave you with this final thought. History shows us that the system is incredibly adaptable. It will evolve. It might even transform into something we barely recognize. The system is adapting. The only question that's left is, are you?